Roadside bathrooms. They're supposed to be a quick stop during a long drive, nothing more, nothing less. But for some, they become the setting for something far more disturbing. Tonight, we're diving into chilling, real-life encounters from people who thought they were just stopping for a bathroom break, only to find themselves in situations they'll never forget. These are the stories of terror lurking in the most unexpected places. Ótima idea. Banjeros isolados estrados nos Estados Unidos tem clima perfeito para historias asustadoras. O isolamento, o silencio e o redor e sensação de vulnerabilidade tornam o cenário ideal para criar tensão. Vou desenvolver relato com esse tema. Seu nome será Alex, e o relato será em inglês. Vamos lá. My name is Alex, and I want to share one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. It happened a few years ago while I was on a solo road trip. It was late at night, and I was driving through a stretch of highway that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. There were no gas stations, no streetlights, just the occasional road sign and the faint glow of my car's headlights cutting through the black void. I had been driving for hours without a break and desperately needed to use the bathroom. Finally, I spotted a sign for a rest area a few miles ahead. Relieved, I pulled into the small parking lot. It was one of those old, poorly maintained rest stops you find in the middle of nowhere. There were 2 vending machines, a couple of benches, and a single building that housed the bathrooms. The place was eerily quiet, with no other cars or people around. The only sound was the hum of the vending machines and the occasional rustle of leaves in the cold night breeze. As I stepped out of my car, I felt an overwhelming sense of unease, but I brushed it off as just the discomfort of being alone in such an isolated place. The bathroom was a small, concrete structure with dim fluorescent lights that flickered erratically. The smell of mildew and stale air hit me as I pushed open the creaking door. There were 2 stalls, a sink, and a cracked mirror on the wall. It was cold inside, colder than it should have been. As I entered the stall, I heard what sounded like soft footsteps echoing through the empty room. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind or my imagination, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I quickly finished and stepped out of the stall, only to find that the bathroom was empty. That's when I noticed something strange. The door to the bathroom, which I had left slightly ajar, was now completely closed. My pulse quickened as I moved toward it, my footsteps echoing loudly on the tiled floor. As I reached for the handle, I heard a low, guttural whisper behind me. It was unintelligible, but it sounded like someone, or something, was trying to speak. My entire body froze, and for a moment, I couldn't bring myself to turn around. When I finally mustered the courage, there was nothing there. Just the flickering light and the empty stalls. Without wasting another second, I yanked the door open and ran back to my car. As I sped away from the rest area, I glanced in my rearview mirror. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a figure standing in the doorway of the bathroom, watching me leave. To this day, I don't know what I experienced that night. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but part of me believes there was something, or someone, in that bathroom. And whatever it was, I'm glad I didn't stick around to find out. Now, second story. My name is Owen, and I never thought a simple pit stop on a road trip would leave me questioning what's real and what isn't. It happened last winter when I was driving home from visiting family. The roads were deserted, blanketed in snow, and the air was bitterly cold. I had been driving for hours, and the fatigue was starting to set in. When I saw a sign for a rest area a couple of miles ahead, I figured it was the perfect spot to take a break and clear my head. The rest area was just like countless others scattered across rural highways, plain, quiet, and surrounded by nothing but darkness. My headlights illuminated a small parking lot with a single restroom building at the far end. There were no other cars, and the only light came from the weak bulb above the bathroom entrance, flickering faintly in the icy wind. As I parked and stepped out of the car, the cold hit me like a punch to the face. The air was so silent it felt oppressive, the kind of quiet that makes you hyper-aware of every sound you make. I hurried toward the bathroom, my boots crunching on the snow-covered pavement. The door was heavy and creaked loudly as I pushed it open. Inside, the restroom was as unwelcoming as the exterior, dim lighting, cracked tiles, and a faint smell of dampness. There were 3 stalls, all with their doors slightly ajar, and a long, smudged mirror above the sinks. As I walked in, I felt an odd sense of tension, like the air was thicker inside. Brushing it off, I headed to one of the stalls. But as I closed the door behind me, I heard the distinct sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the empty bathroom. I froze, holding my breath. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice breaking the eerie silence. No response. Peeking through the gap in the stall door, I didn't see anyone. The bathroom looked just as empty as when I walked in. Trying to shake off the unease, I finished quickly and stepped out of the stall. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. All 3 stall doors were now closed. When I first came in, they were slightly open, I'm sure of it. My breath hitched as I scanned the room, the silence now almost deafening. Slowly, I walked toward the sink, keeping my eyes on the stalls and the mirror's reflection. That's when it happened. The door to the farthest stall creaked open, just slightly, as if someone, or something, was inside. I wanted to run, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. Then, from that stall, I heard a faint whisper. It wasn't words, exactly, more like a raspy, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. My fight-or-flight instincts finally kicked in, and I bolted for the door. As I reached for the handle, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into brief moments of darkness. In those split seconds, I swear I saw a shadow move across the stalls, fast and unnatural. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car with the doors locked. My heart was racing, and my breath came out in shallow gasps. As I drove away, I glanced back at the building. Through the frosted window of the bathroom door, I thought I saw a dark figure standing there, watching me leave. I still don't know what I encountered in that bathroom, and I'm not sure I want to. One thing's for certain, though, I'll think twice before stopping at another rest area in the middle of nowhere. Now, let's go to the second story. Before that, I want to ask you, have you ever had a similar experience? My name is Mason, and what happened to me last summer is something I'll never forget. It was supposed to be just another family road trip, but a stop at a roadside bathroom turned into one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. We were driving back home after visiting my grandparents. It was late afternoon, and we had been on the road for hours. My dad, who was driving, pulled into a rest stop so I could use the bathroom. It was one of those small, isolated ones you find along highways. No gas station, no convenience store, just a parking lot and a dingy building. My dad stayed in the car while I walked to the restroom. The place looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years, with graffiti on the walls and a faint, sour smell lingering in the air. I hurried into one of the stalls, planning to get in and out as quickly as possible. As I finished and stepped out, I noticed someone standing by the entrance, a man in a dirty jacket with wild, unkempt hair. He was just staring at me, blocking the exit. My heart started racing, but I tried to act normal. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice calm. He didn't move. He just stood there, his eyes locked on me. His lips curled into a crooked smile, and I could see that some of his teeth were missing. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and gravelly. I froze, unsure of what to do. The restroom was too small for me to run past him, and the only other exit was a tiny window I'd never fit through. My dad was right outside, but the building was thick enough that I doubted he'd hear me if I shouted. "I just need to leave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The man took a step closer, and I backed up until I hit the sink behind me. My breathing grew shallow as panic set in. That's when I decided to yell. "Dad! Dad, help!" I could hear my own voice echoing off the grimy tiles. For a moment, the man seemed startled, as if he hadn't expected me to make noise. Then he lunged toward me. I ducked to the side and managed to put one of the stall doors between us. He banged on it with his fists, muttering incoherently. My shouting must have carried outside because, seconds later, I heard my dad's voice booming from just beyond the door. "Mason? Mason, are you okay?" The man froze, his head snapping toward the entrance. I could hear my dad pounding on the door, trying to get in. The man muttered something under his breath and bolted, pushing past my dad as he ran out. My dad burst into the bathroom and found me, shaking and pressed against the wall. He looked furious and worried all at once. "Are you hurt? What happened?" I told him everything as we rushed back to the car. We didn't stay to see where the man went, and my dad called the police as soon as we were back on the road. To this day, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if my dad hadn't been outside, or if I hadn't yelled. I avoid roadside bathrooms now, no matter how desperate I am. Some places are just too dangerous to take a chance on. Now, let's go to the last story. My name is Samuel, and I've always been the kind of person who laughs at horror stories about roadside bathrooms. That was until one night last winter when I learned just how terrifying those places can actually be. I was driving back home after visiting a friend who lived 2 states away. The trip was long, and by the time midnight rolled around, I was exhausted. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere, the urge to use the bathroom hit me hard. There weren't any gas stations or rest stops nearby, but eventually, I saw one of those small, isolated bathrooms by the side of the road. I pulled over, leaving the car idling to keep the heat on. The place was dimly lit by a single flickering light outside, and the surrounding area was pitch black. I hesitated for a moment, but nature wasn't going to wait. The bathroom door creaked loudly as I pushed it open. Inside, the smell of mildew and something far worse hit me like a brick wall. I held my breath and stepped in, hoping to get this over with as quickly as possible. That's when I heard voices. They were faint at first, coming from the far side of the bathroom, where a second door led to another section of the building. I froze, my ears straining to pick up what was being said. It didn't sound like normal conversation, more like chanting. Curiosity got the better of me, and I quietly stepped closer to the source of the sound. Peeking through the crack in the door, my heart nearly stopped. Inside the next room, a group of people stood in a circle, their faces hidden under dark hoods. Candles were scattered on the floor, their flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the center of the circle was some kind of makeshift altar, and what looked like blood streaked the floor around it. I felt my stomach churn as one of them raised their hands, holding something I couldn't quite make out. The chanting grew louder, almost frantic, and I realized I needed to leave. Now. I stepped back, but my shoe scuffed against the floor, the sound echoing in the otherwise quiet space. The chanting stopped abruptly. "Who's there?" a deep voice called out. I didn't wait to find out what they'd do if they found me. I turned and bolted out the door, sprinting back to my car as fast as I could. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the lock, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see them chasing after me. Finally, I got the door open, jumped inside, and slammed it shut. My heart was pounding as I sped away, glancing in the rearview mirror. For a moment, I thought I saw someone step out of the building and into the faint light, but I didn't stick around to confirm it. Once I was far enough away, I pulled over and called the police, reporting what I had seen. They assured me they'd send someone to check it out, but I never heard back about what, if anything, they found. Even now, the memory sends chills down my spine. That night taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Sometimes, it's better to just hold it in. Thank you for listening to these unsettling tales. They remind us that even the most ordinary places can hide the unexpected, and danger often lies where we least anticipate it. If you've ever had a strange or terrifying experience like these, feel free to share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, some stops are better left unmade.